What's up, everybody? This is Frankie Telford, and this is
Katie Dabrowski.
And this is the Old Bull Podcast.
We're super excited to be back, kind of talking about some of the stuff that we're really passionate about here at Old Bull, with how we work with our clients and our patients, how we create a working environment that we're really proud of. And today's big topic is going to be all about our why, basically, like why we do what we do and where our passion to change healthcare came from. And just to kind of talk about, the current state of healthcare and how we basically want to do the exact opposite of the current place of healthcare, and kind of just how we do that here. So, Frankie, if you want to kind of start with, especially since where you saw just the beginning of Old Bull and where you thought it was going to help kind of change healthcare and change the experience of every client who walks in. What are some of the big pillars for how and why you want to change healthcare and how we can do it here?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is looking at how, I think when I was in school, I was in an exercise physiology class, and they were talking about the rate of obesity that was constantly climbing in the US. I think at that time it was right around 30-something%, maybe 29%. This was in 2010. And now to look at the staggering numbers, we're at 42% as of a 2017 study.
It's wild.
As a nation.
And that's not even considering all of the changes that we'll probably see with COVID and with just the world changing even more since 2017. I can only imagine what the next numbers bring up for us.
Yeah, so just from a strength and conditioning purpose, or looking from the lens of, hey, we have been looking at trying to get better as a society in the realm of obesity, but we just end up going the other direction. So something is broken here, right? So if you start to look at Big Pharma, and Big Pharma last year made close to $1.5 trillion.
Yeah.
Trillion dollars with a T. It's insane because nothing has changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. The problem has gotten worse.
Yeah.
Right. So if our healthcare is just selling us pills, how do we change that narrative as a brand, So that's really where Old Bull kind of gets inserted. We want to be true healthcare. We want to empower people to get stronger, get out of pain faster, and then, even coming to the physical therapy clinics, where you see these still mill places that can't win because they're not designed to win. They're not designed to be client-centric as an Old Bull would be.
Yeah, and I think when we were talking about this before, you said it really well. Healthcare is not trying to sell you health. They're trying to sell you an injection, a procedure, or a medication. And while there's a time and a place, I think there's a lot of pushback sometimes with our profession, where, but not everything can be fixed with a squat. I'd say most things probably can be. Yeah. But there's definitely a time and a place for different, more invasive measures, less conservative management. But why wouldn't you want to try that first? We've become a society that's so quick to jumping to some sort of medication that probably has a slew of other side effects. Right. A procedure that is an injection or actually cutting you open, and something that's way more invasive than, trying some of the pillars of being a human, eating a little bit better and moving more, and seeing how that can impact where we're at. I think I just talked about this in the most recent course that I did. I think right now, physical activity guidelines, which are pretty low level, a couple days a week of some strength activity, and then also getting about 150 minutes a week of aerobic exercise. We're at about 24% of Americans actually meeting that. 24% of Americans are moving for 150 minutes a week.
That's terrible.
That's terrible. And there's actually a really cool study most recently. I'm going to shout out Professor Michael Ray on Instagram. He's a researcher out of Virginia. He just published a really awesome paper with a few other really prolific colleagues about the relationship between the experience of pain and if you meet physical activity guidelines or not. And there was a crazy relationship between people who experience pain and their propensity to not meet physical activity guidelines.
Right.
So like what a low-level, low-hanging fruit we have right in front of us to be able to get people to move more and have that impact their pain. Like that's huge. I think that's a huge opportunity.
A huge opportunity and a bunch of different things that I guess not only what we do here, we're looking at in the sense of stress levels, we're looking at in the sense of nutrition, we're looking at all of these other things, all these other factors that come with health and healthcare, sleep quality, how much REM sleep you're getting, how many hours of sleep you're getting, how you're managing your stress. All of those things are a part of it, are a part of your healthcare, which, again, taking a pill doesn't take into account any of that stuff.
Yeah, and thinking of how many people, all they need to probably start the process of feeling better, whether they're experiencing a pain or injury or they want to change their lifestyle, is like having a provider who has the time to sit with them for an hour and actually just talk about their life and give them an opportunity for them to tell their story. It's every time we have new evaluations here where people are surprised that we will take as much time as it needs for them to talk to us instead of poking and prodding and trying to get to a diagnosis that we can tell their insurance company so they can keep coming back. Like we have the luxury of having time with people to be able to say, tell me your story, tell me what's bothering you, I want to learn about you and see how I can create the best experience for you to heal or for you to improve based on who you are and not just like this diagnosis code that I have to feed into the computer to hopefully get reimbursement for.
Yeah.
It's sad how many people come in and they're shocked by what we can provide.
Right. For sure. Yeah. I think because the healthcare system is built that way and it's in its DNA to have to go through the codes and fight with insurance companies for, reimbursement and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For Old Bull to be client-centric and making sure that, hey, we want, our DNA is to make sure that the client has the best case scenario, best case practice, best case opportunity for them to have success. We are built that way. We don't want to fight with insurances. We don't want to waste time fighting with insurances. We want to take all our time and spend it on our clients so they have success and they can go do what they want to do in life, whether that's, biking in the Maldives or if that's just picking their grandson off of the floor because they've had lower back pain for X amount of time,
Yeah, and I think that's like kind of a cool, really easy transition into, why we don't take insurance and why the model is the way that it is. Because it's one of those things that most people don't understand their own insurance policy anyway, because it's so convoluted and so confusing, and understanding deductibles and copays and what's in network and out of network, first and foremost, that's just a mess, and we don't really think that you should have to worry about that when you just want to get better. So that's, first and foremost, it's confusing and it's so hard to navigate. As a medical provider who's trained in this stuff, we have classes where we learn about this and I still don't understand it.
It's complicated for a reason.
Yeah, so
sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as a consumer, when you're just trying to figure out, can I go somewhere to feel better? You have to check all of these boxes to make sure that it's a place that you're approved for
sure.
Which is nuts. To not have a say in your healthcare and where you get treated, that's a whole, I could go down a whole rabbit hole with that too.
For sure.
But yeah, it's to create an experience where healthcare doesn't have to be complicated. You know what you're getting when you walk in the door. You know what the rate is. You know that you're always going to be completely one-on-one with your provider, and they're always going to be somebody who is doctorally level trained as a physical therapist. There's no hidden fees. There's no crazy chasing your policy adjuster to figure out your reimbursement if you can come back to therapy or not. It's just, you know what you're getting.
Right.
And I think taking away the stress of not knowing what you're getting when you're coming to a facility and just wanting to feel better. What do we know about stress at this point? That it just
makes everything worse.
Snowballs any injury and makes it worse anyway, and it makes pain worse anyway. Mm-hmm. So if we can cut back on the stress and you know what you're getting when you walk in, That's huge. And I mean, you come from a background of working in a facility that was a physical therapy clinic that was incredibly busy. Like, can you speak to how different this looks compared to that? Like, what, just from your perspective?
Yeah.
Because I was fortunate enough to meet you right away and get to start what we consider to be the dream location.
Right.
So, like, can you speak to just what your day-to-day is like differently?
Yeah. So when I was in that clinic, we had about 10 tables just set up on one side of the clinic and like a small gym space on the other side. The weights didn't go as heavy as we have here. It's just 132 pounds here compared to like maybe like 20 pounds there. I think a lot of the challenges for those big clinics, and this clinic in particular, was the reimbursement for care essentially was so low, and it was getting lower, that they had to see more people, which turns into burnout for their people trying to do like borderline illegal things, like having students treat without, you know, some type of supervision, and treat multiple people at times. And really what I saw was, for the client or whoever the patient was, it was a lesser service. You know, I'm doing one-on-one training on one side, and then, you know, if I refer my client to a situation like that where they were doing therapy, they're like, hey, you know, like, they just, you know, yelled at me from across the room and told me to do these 3 exercises that they gave literally everyone else, and it was just like a little factory. And I was like, well, I hate that for you. I don't want to refer my clients to that.
Correct.
So if I can give them a situation where they can be one-on-one with a physical therapist the entire time, and it be a one-on-one strength and conditioning program that kind of meets in the middle,
it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And it's, you know, those are the type of settings that are the most common for physical therapy. And it's not the therapist's fault. Like, we all go into this wanting to really help people. But when you're in a scenario where an insurance company is only going to reimburse X amount per session for the care that you have with somebody, to keep the lights on, okay, you have to see 3, sometimes even 4 patients per hour. As a student, as an intern, my second rotation, I saw 3 patients per hour standard. And you're just juggling at that point. And no matter how well-intentioned you are and how much you want to help that person in front of you, there's just no way to provide the one-on-one attention, to hear their story and to get to know them and see how you can best help them. And then to actually create a program that's going to stress their body enough to make a change. If you're seeing so many people at one time, you can't really watch somebody who you know you need to progress them to maybe deadlifting some pretty heavy weight. You're probably going to throw a resistance band at them instead and say, okay, go ahead and do this, you know, kind of lower level exercise, and then I'll be over here with my other patient. And so that's just the thing that I knew for me too was like a non-negotiable. Like, I knew I could never provide the type of care that I really wanted to if I had to be in a setting like that. And, you know, in our profession, physical therapy and strength and conditioning and the whole of the fitness world, we get a lot of pushback, especially, I'll say more from the therapy lens, of like therapy not working. And you know what? I don't blame people for having that perspective if all you've ever seen is a super busy clinic with, you know, tables lined up against the wall, no exercise equipment, maybe like a cable stack and some bands, and you're being shuffled around to either different therapists every time you come in, or techs and aides rather than working with the person that you probably kind of signed up for. And you're doing the same stuff over and over again. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Then if that's your definition of physical therapy, then it doesn't. The body needs to be stressed. The body needs to have a challenge placed upon it for an adaptation to occur and for change and resiliency to occur. And yeah, it's just not going to work if you're in that type of a setting.
I mean, do anything. Do 3 projects at once and see how well you do all of them, as opposed to being able to focus on one person or one project at a time. You know, you get that project done a lot faster if all your focus is on one thing as opposed to 3. And that goes into the clinics as well, right? If you're constantly just trying to bill insurances over and over and over again, and you're seeing multiple people at a time per hour, you know, a lot of these people aren't going to see a lot of progress throughout the year, right? As opposed to a one-on-one situation like what we would be doing, where they are the project for the entire hour, and we can get specific imposed demands as we go along and challenge them accordingly, and then go from there. Which, you know, our turnaround time is crazy for people getting better, you know?
Yeah, that's such a good point of like, you go into these clinics and they kind of throw this prescription at you of 2 to 3 times a week for 12 to 16 weeks, no matter what you're dealing with. And to be able to actually see somebody for that full hour session and devote time to them, and this is probably one of the biggest things that I love about this setting, when you have somebody coming in who is electing to not use insurance and to self-pay, you have such an opportunity as a clinician to show them, okay, this is why this was worth it. And while we should always be doing that, I don't know if you're in a really busy clinic and you're just being shuffled constantly insurance patients where you've never really had to work for them. I don't know if you're going to show them that same level of care. Right. And to be able to be in a position where my opportunity to show this person how different this type of treatment is like all I can think about when I'm working with somebody, to show them like, this is what we do here. This is why we're different. This is why you came here. And I'm going to show you this in this first session, how much we can accomplish. Right. And then you're not going to have to come here 2 to 3 times a week indefinitely until your benefits run out. It's instead like, let's logically create a plan, and I want to see how fast I can get you better. Right. I want to be like, let's see what we can do in 4 weeks. Let's see what we can do in 6 weeks. Right. And we'll see what happens and really push you to get better even faster. Right. And I think that's huge. I think people want to get better faster. They don't want to just come in and still feel terrible.
Nobody wants to be in pain for a long period of time.
To be able to offer that is huge.
Right, for sure. Yeah, like I said, it comes back down to our DNA. So, the therapists that were in these clinics were incredibly stressed, working 60 to 70-hour weeks, and then seeing patients on top of that. I mean, if you're stressed already and you're working these crazy hours, limited sleep, maybe have a kid or a family at home.
Or just want to do anything else.
Or do anything outside of work. Imagine bringing that to the table for your already irritated clients or irritated patients. Totally. And how that exudes out of you onto them, Again, in our DNA, none of our practitioners work more than, 40-hour weeks with documentation. Yeah. So, and then at the end of the day, when you look at 40-hour weeks compared to 70, in a consistency over 52 weeks and beyond, right? If they're working there for a lot more than a year, you just have a different result. It's a different environment. You have a different feel to therapy. You want to come in. You want to be a part of the experience. You want to be with people that are also happy with where they are. So. Definitely
such a big important thing too.
Huge.
If the person who's coaching you through arguably one of the most vulnerable times of your life, when you're in pain or you're injured, if their baseline level of stress is extremely high, or they're so wrapped up in thinking about the next patient, or currently when they're working with you that they have to juggle with 2 other people, I mean, that's going to impact outcomes for sure. And 1,000%. I think of too, when I was a student working in these clinics, and the goal at the end of the evaluation was always to get the diagnosis code, because that's what matters to the insurance company. So you're rushed through an evaluation, doing a million tests and measures to be able to prove to an insurance company how you got the diagnosis code that you got. So all you can think about is okay, what's next? Okay, boom, 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 going down my checklist of everything that I need to test on this person, so I can give them the magic code and they can approve my visit. Whereas here, it's a conversation. We're figuring out from a functional standpoint what can improve, instead of slapping a made-up syndrome on a patient and making them get even more in their head about their injury. Right. So I don't care what the diagnosis is. I care about what can't you do that you want to be able to do. Right. Let's figure out how to get there. For sure. Because we don't have to, beg an insurance company to be like, please accept this visit for us. Right. Which is, huge for the patient.
1,000%.
And then, of course, the elephant in the room, right? I think everybody talks about cash physical therapy, cash pay or direct pay, meaning just not going through insurance, of this really crazy high expense that not everybody can do. And while, of course, maybe it's not the right option for everybody, but I think we have to take into consideration being able to see somebody for a full hour every single time they come in, and having your therapist 100% 100% devoted to you, we're going to get faster outcomes. We're going to get better outcomes, and you're going to get better quicker. If you compare like a single session visit to the amount of co-pays you pay time and time again every time you're going into a traditional clinic 2 to 3 times a week indefinitely, or chances are you probably haven't even met your deductible yet, so you still have to meet that first. The differences in price become a lot more blurred.
Right.
And I think as soon as people come in and they see the experience and they see the value of what they're getting, that light bulb goes off and being like, oh, I could come in 4 or 5 times and be totally taken care of and have 100% attention on me and be pushed and challenged in a way with all of this stuff in here to actually make a change to get better, versus I could go through the motions for 16 weeks 2 or 3 times a week, still shelling out a $20 or $50 copay each session, and end up, spending exponentially more in the long run.
Right.
I think that's a huge misconception, and something that we're really proud to be able to kind of make people realize, like, oh, we don't have to do as many sessions as you would somewhere else, and that's a game changer for, again, somebody just wanting to get better faster and to get like super high quality care, which is like in our DNA, exactly
Right.
what you said.
For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thanks for tuning in to the OBA podcast. We love you.
Bye.